Thing number four, Gary, global conflict. Obviously, you've got all sorts of wars that it seems like starting to prop up. We're seeing higher oil prices. You're saying that could be a problem for a Federal Reserve that just cut rates. Thing number four, Gary, global tensions each equal rising inflation.
All right. So it's been over 2.5 years since Russia invaded Ukraine. And, Russia is a gigantic energy producer. And now, as everybody knows, for the last year, we've had a war in the Middle East or several of them. Um, that is now starting to spread. Lebanon has fired missiles into Israel. Israel has responded with by dropping bombs on the heads of Hezbollah and also a ground invasion. Um, we understand there are human lives involved. It is not the purview of deep knowledge investing or the show to talk about politics or wars. Um, we focus on finance. And so, with respect to the people whose lives are affected by this, we're going to talk about finance. And, there are other places to go to argue about these things. Um, Obviously, the Middle East is a huge region of the world for energy production, oil in particular. And what we've seen in just the last 2 weeks with the escalating conflict between Israel and Lebanon is the price of oil has gone from $72 a barrel to 81 a barrel. That's a pretty big move in a couple of weeks. And Rob, you made the key point, which is when that happens, what do you think happens to the CPI? Right? Energy is a huge part of the consumer price index. That is the index that people use to calculate inflation. Now, astute viewers will point out, wait, that won't affect the core CPI. And that's true. Core excludes food and energy, which are volatile. And people, in the last couple of years started talking about super core, which excludes food, oil, and shelter, which at this point, we're now talking about something like 60 or 70% of the CPI being excluded, or maybe a little less than that, a little between 50 and 60%. There's an old joke by somebody I like on Twitter or X, Caleb Franzen, who said if you exclude everything, the CPI is zero. It's the Franzen index, it's always zero. But the key point of all of this is last month, the Federal Reserve cut interest rates. And at the time, we warned they're cutting prematurely. And the thing, we think the Fed is making the Arthur Burns mistake and they're cutting too soon. And we're going to get a resurgence of inflation. And, if energy prices start to skyrocket, that's what we're going to see, a higher CPI. And the Federal Reserve is not going to look great, looking at an inflationary spike right after they cut rates. Now, is that the Fed's fault? No, but it also was foreseeable. It's not like conflict in the Middle East just happened in the last 2 weeks and everyone said, "Oh my God, how did this happen? We've never seen this before." This has been going on for decades, and this particular round has been going on for, well, I'm sad to say this is October 7th, 2024. This particular round has been going on for exactly 1 year, which itself is incredibly disturbing to say, but that's where we are at the moment.
Gary, I know DKI has a large oil position within the portfolio. How closely aligned is DKI's portfolio with the rising or falling price of just a barrel of oil?
So our portfolio is long a huge amount of energy, and that is for two reasons. One reason is because um, owning oil or oil related assets is a great way to ensure against the loss of purchasing power of the dollar. And, I remember a couple of years ago having a really interesting conversation with somebody, a hedge fund manager who's very systematic and smart in his thinking. And, he said to me, I think all the time about what would I want my net worth to be denominated in? Would I want my net worth to be denominated in dollars, barrels of oil, Bitcoin, bars of gold, and whatever it is? And his answer was barrels of oil because oil is incredibly useful and demand for that has not gone down. So, for that, I think that makes a lot of sense. And, with the declining purchasing power of the dollar and increasing energy demands for the whole world, I like owning a lot of oil for that. The other reason we are long so much energy is because we own huge amounts of uranium. If you want electric cars, if you want AI, data centers, if you want to have data centers powered by tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of, NVIDIA's best chips, those each data center uses enough energy to power multiple cities. And the only way you're going to be able to do that without a higher carbon footprint is nuclear. And people are starting to realize that. And um, as that's happening, the demand for uranium is skyrocketing and supply isn't going up fast enough. So for all those reasons, we own huge amounts of energy. Um, you know, again, the recent move is related to war. I wish that weren't the reason we were making money in these names. But again, one of the weird things about this business is, you look at things and frequently see things that are wrong or terrible or inadvisable or horrible. And, you can recognize them as wrong or bad, but it's still our responsibility to find a way to help our partners, our subscribers, our clients make money in any environment and for any reason. And so, you just sort of leave that at the door when you're sitting at your desk.